Welcome to MSP 1337. I'm your host, Chris Johnson, a show dedicated to cybersecurity challenges, solutions, a journey together, not alone. Welcome, everybody, to the last and final episode of 2023. This will be the Outlook episode of looking at what's coming in 2024. And I'm joined again this week by Joshua Smith of Reliaquest. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Hate to see 2020 leave, but no, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Well,
I'm
I was
really
going to
looking
say 2020 was a long time ago, so I'm hoping you're talking
right.
about 2023.
2023.
The coma that you were in as you've awakened, and it is already 2024.
Yes. No, looking forward to 2024. I think everyone in any tangentially related role to sales is probably excited about 2023 to be behind us.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think there's a lot of educational moments in 2023 that I think perhaps will help us as we continue to march forward. We really can't go backwards. That's something over the years I figured out. I really can't go back in time as of yet. I don't know. Have you figured it out?
I did see like a little glimpse of a clip of something that popped up on my newsfeed that says that I think physicists have been able to do some sort of theorem that can prove that there is not a paradox theory in time travel. Okay. So now we're back to it being like maybe, but it might be one of those things where it was just, clickbait. Who's to say?
Yeah, just draw you in so they can tell you, oh, by the way, you've also won a $25 Amazon gift card.
Hey, I'd take that.
All right. So with the outlook of 2024 and our pessimistic review of 2023, is there hope in cybersecurity as we look forward, Josh?
I am going to say yes, because I promised to be optimistic on this one.
Yes.
But I think, I'm positive on the outlook that there's going to be more 8Ks filed in the new year. See, that was a positive. See, there's going to be more 8Ks, filed with the new SEC regs. I'm positive about that. Yeah. I'm positive we're going to hear more and more about, AI and all the fun stuff that the good guys and the bad guys are doing. And I'm positive that the Fed is going to lower some rates. So those are three positive things right there.
I think the one that I was thinking about that was, I don't want to say it's paramount in what's circulating in the muddy upstairs, but one that came to mind for me was if we can change the dynamics around complexity for passwords, and I know we're going to see more and more of that passwordless authentication. I think anytime you use some sort of combination that doesn't involve memorizing a character string, we're probably improving the probability of it's less likely to be compromised without, say, physical access or some sort of if you're being held hostage and they ask for your phone and your wallet and a couple other things, they might be able to get into your accounts. But largely, you don't see a lot of that happening in real time anymore. It's largely done through the digital realm. Right. Maybe physically accessing your browser might happen still, but that one was one kind of big one for me. And some of it's kind of exciting, right? Like thinking about things like using a token or like a YubiKey to plug in. It's like you've been authenticated, or even, a smartwatch that allows you to, because you're proximity based to your computer, you're allowing that to be the authentication mechanism. I realize nothing is foolproof, but I think if we can get more and more people adopting those types of technologies and getting vendors to support that way of authentication, it's just one more step towards that. MFA was better than just having a password, using different passwords for each site, and then the password manager, a continuous improvement. But like, what else? There's got to be some other good one. I think that one's, I think 2024 is not going to be the end of this. Like, we're going to solve passwordless authentication in first quarter.
Yeah, and no, I think that's a positive because moving towards more physical based identification will make it harder for the bad guys. It's hard to get like a dump of YubiKeys, let's just use for example, right? Just like the whole promise with the credit cards was, if the waiter takes your card behind the counter, they can swipe it by just copying the mag strip, but they can't
Right.
really do that with a chip, right? I think we're moving more towards complexity. But I think every time we build a 10-foot wall, the bad guys, find an 11-foot ladder. So there'll be some new way of figuring it out, just like with MFA, right? We've got the evil Gen X, right? Those proxies that can steal people's auth keys. So
Right.
this is
The
going to be
session
something
tokens.
new, session
Yeah.
tokens, right? In MFA codes and all that kind of fun stuff. But I think moving more towards passwordless, I mean, it's going to bring a whole new bunch of
It's
problems.
not very
People,
optimistic. You
people.
you shifted you shifted from
Oh, damn,
optimism. Yeah.
damn.
Shoot.
I'm optimistic. I'm positive that people will start losing these UB keys, and there'll be a whole other problem to have. That's honestly, I'll say that's my one like slight hesitation for those kind of things. Is it being physical? It can be lost, but I guess I haven't lost my house keys in a long time, so maybe I feel bullish on it now.
When was the last time you lost your cell phone?
Also true. Yeah, it's
I mean, I
been.
remember you lost an iPad once on an
I was
airplane, but
thinking the only thing I can remember is when I left that iPad in the back of that darn Southwest flight.
well,
Yeah, that still haunts me.
I think they fixed that by making the pockets not so tall. I think that's one of that's helped with that for sure.
I mean,
That's a
off my last
positive.
flight, and I realize we're going on a tangent here, but when I left my last flight, I heard like three announcements on the airport PA about like a flight. Like if you just arrived from Tennessee, please come back to the gate if you lost your iPad or your earphones. Like so, they
Right.
were calling people back because they were now going through quickly and finding all the things that people are forgetting.
Yeah. I remember back in the day discovering a Walkman that was in the seat in front of me. And I was like, this is a pretty nice Walkman. And so I handed it to the flight attendant. She's like, no, 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 you keep that. She's like, what do you think I'm going to do with it? She's like, it's going to just get thrown away.
Yeah, fair
Oh,
enough. But
awesome. Cool.
you're right. Like we do like clutch our phone
Pretty
a lot.
tightly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of something physical you always have with you. UB key or some sort of physical token on your keychain. Yeah, I mean, I think that'll really help us get away from the continuous password problem we have.
Right.
Still, organizations telling people to keep a complex password. You still have to change it every 90 days. You can't use previous ones. And I'm just
Why
like, wait,
not? Why
I
not,
thought we
Josh? Why
moved
can't they
past
use the
that.
old password? I changed it to Panther 2. Is Panther
Right.
can't go back to Panther 1? This is ridiculous.
Yeah. So I think even with password managers, I think we're still stuck in the whole like rotating passwords, make them complex.
Yeah.
And
Or
if
the
you're on a work
duplicate
computer,
passwords, right? You see
duplicate
that a lot.
passwords.
Like, hey, I got a
Yeah.
password manager, 200 passwords to manage, and it's like 85 of them are duplicates.
Yeah. But that's okay. Those are the ones I don't care about, right?
Right,
That's
right. And you
that's
hear
for
that
my
all the time.
Fandango account, right?
That's
It's
for
fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's my MySpace account. I still follow a
Yeah.
couple bands.
But yeah, I'd be interested to see kind of where things go from there in terms of passwordless. Like, I don't know. You tell me. I think you're more exposed to the kind of more SMB space. Windows Hello, did that really, did that take off in
I
in business?
I can't answer that. Like I have the Windows 11. I've got the Hello stuff on my personal machine that I feasibly could take advantage of. I think it's
Right.
still a little bit of a gray area, especially when you consider devices that don't have the best cameras.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a pretty nice Lenovo all-in-one that's got
Mm.
I think it's a 720p camera, and I'm like, if the lighting's not right,
Right.
who is that in view? So I think that's another example of a step in the right direction. It's just, is it going to happen in a more faster? Which I think this is a good transition to talk about. You brought it up a little bit before, the AI
Mm.
world, and we were actually talking about this on some of the cybersecurity forums. Secure Outcomes is talking about this in their peer groups, like having conversations around 2024 is going to be the year of acceptable use policy. Now has a whole new section. The acceptable use around AI, like can I use ChatGPT? Can I what and are we appropriately educating employees to understand, like, hey, you're going to sign off on this policy. Do you understand what AI is? Do you understand where you are already using it? It's the buzzword of the 2024. Like it's the
Yeah.
buzzword of this year, but even more so, I think, as we go into the new year.
Yeah. And I think the way that we've handled it at Reliaquest was in-house it. So we have our own essentially private LLMs.
Sure.
So we have our own, essentially our own private chat GPT that
Yeah.
we can work with. I leverage it all the time. Essentially what I
Write your
figured,
blog articles and
well,
LinkedIn posts. Yeah, of course.
the wife clued me in, because we've got tools that do that. Like if we're like, okay, I've read this article, I want to share it, I got things to do. Hey, RQGPT, what would be a good social media post for this? Because I want to share it. And Jess turned me on to the fact that she's like, oh yeah, you can tell now when people are using like chat gpt or something to make posts, because it uses like icons, like emojis, in all of its posts. And I started to see that in my own posts and other people's posts, because I was like, man, this guy or gal is always posting, they're always on top of it. And I realized they were just using like an AI
Yeah,
assistant to
but
do
don't
some of the
worry. I
work.
saw this earlier this week. There's now a product out there that's called AI Detection Deceiver. So
Oh,
it will help humanize what you're posting so that it is not detectable by your Turnitins and other AI detection tools, which I was like, sweet, I'm back on top. No one will know that it wasn't me that wrote this.
I
But
mean, we're entering neuromancer
that's right.
territory,
Pretty soon
where
we're
we're
gonna
going to have
think something.
corporate AI versus corporate AI. It's just going
Right.
to be like the battle of AIs and who
I see
AI the
Skynet
most.
all over this. Yeah, it's gonna be, yeah, here
No,
it
wait,
comes.
positive, 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 positive.
Skynet was good until it wasn't.
There you go.
Okay, so along those same lines, though,
Yeah.
this is where I think we're going to see a lot of this in 2024. So, an example of this would be you use the Bing search engine. It's
Mhm.
using AI. It is not internal to your company.
Yeah.
Google, similarly, Google has obviously their search engine. And has been using AI for years, right? Like
Mhm.
search engines were built on large language models, right? Like, like for us to
Yeah.
say, like,
Yeah.
so we've kind of gone into this like we're terrible about this, right? We talk about things like, oh, well, the new buzzword is going to be AI, and you're like, well, what is AI? And where we start listing off things like Siri and other you know systems that help. What was it? Watson, or even the first example we really saw it on a broad level was in Iron Man when he talks to uh,
Jarvis.
whatever, yeah, Jervis,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then Friday.
So so what I guess maybe like it is a positive. It could be a negative, how we use LLM and AI and who's responsible for what. And like you said, we're going to see more and more corporations and businesses bringing in-house your chat GPTs to help manage the data flow so that what is owned by an organization is not just publicly shared. I think there's the next chapter of that. Like, so I said the acceptable use policy as an example, but one of the things that I think we're going to see more of, and I'd love your thoughts on this, especially working for a larger organization. When you look at, are we doing any sort of risk profiling when we look at vendors, products, and services that might facilitate that AI model? I'm just curious what you've seen.
Yeah. Well, I think as you're right. More and more main commercial products are bringing AI in, like things like Copilot
Right.
and those kind of
It's
things,
just
where
kind of on, right? Like it's
it's just kind
cool,
of
but
in. Yeah,
yeah,
like look is just going to start to, before it'll suggest like the next word, whereas now I think it's going to start to suggest sentences, paragraphs,
right.
tonality, right? So I think it's going to start suggesting more and more things, and people are just going to like tab their way through an entire email to somebody and then just hit send. But yeah, where you know is that going to be self-feeding? Like as you do that, is that going to go back in there? Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting, like, maybe more stuff around focus on the legal terms in those contracts with the vendors that the companies are going to have to take on, or maybe folks like the EFF, or government oversight. I mean, how close are we, if we don't already have it, to some sort of government AI regulator, right? Because the common
Wow.
person isn't going to
I don't
really.
know if that's optimistic or just really, really dark.
I think it's optimistic, because I don't think the everyday person is going to really pay attention to how far these AI assistants are going to start to permeate their daily lives. And if we
Sure.
learned anything from the vendors, the Googles, the Facebooks, if it's free, then you're the product, right? So we start getting
Mhm.
these like free AI assistants, then the people become what feeds the AI, which can be good because obviously it's been helpful to a lot of people, especially a lot of small businesses, even big businesses. So it's kind of like it's amoral, right? It's what you do with it. It's like money. It can be
Yeah.
used for good, it can be used for bad, but we still need someone to keep an eye on it so that it doesn't go too far off the rails.
That's a really good segue to, I think, what we're going to see more of in 2024 is more training of users. And I don't just mean like inside of solution providers or inside tech vendors providing more education. I think education, you brought up a good point about like it's amoral. It's not like that it's necessarily good or evil. It's what you do with it. And we've seen evidence of this where, you ask an AI prompt and you ask for some sort of sensitive information and it says no, but you keep asking, and pretty soon, based on how you phrase your question, you're like, oh, it's just for lab testing. It's just a hypothetical. Here's how you build whatever it was that you wanted to
Right.
build. And I think that's also the positive at the same time, because if we think about how threat actors are obviously using these same tools, emails are going to get, phishing emails are going to get far more sophisticated, where you're not going to be able to detect that it was written in English, not first language.
Yeah.
But the education side of this is, if we're truly educating people, consumers, employees, etc., well then we're forcing the hand of making the cybersecurity hygiene changes that make whatever it was that they used as the phishing more or less obsolete or very difficult to still be successful, because you've made decisions where it's like, I know I'm getting an email that's asking me to do something that's not within the realm of ordinary.
Right.
Like my CEO is not going to ask me because they're in Bermuda, and yet I can see them across the hallway.
Yeah.
Right? Like things like that that used to be like, well, the CEO wants it done right now. I should probably stay head down in my cubicle and make sure that I get that done. Don't look up because they might be in their office. But like
Right.
we've transitioned into a world where we're starting to be more conscious about the things that we used to take for granted and just go click. Is that fair? Like, do you think that there's an actual we may actually be at a tipping point that because of AI and the technology therein, we do some education to, say the good guys,
Mhm.
we've made the lives for the bad guys a lot more difficult, because there's only so much low-hanging fruit when you recognize like, oh, maybe it isn't a good idea to just not put a pin code on Facebook or MySpace. I mean, everybody's using MySpace, so that's probably more important.
More of a Friendster person myself, but yeah, I get what you're
Got it,
saying.
got it.
It's kind of interesting, talking about training. I think maybe something I'm bullish on in a positive way is AI assisted security training, right? There's not, you can't have one speed for everybody.
Right.
When I get sent security training that, the folks that I don't even know run the building operations get, right? It's like almost lowest common denominator when it comes to training. But if we could leverage AI to say, ask a couple questions to get a sense of that person's level of security knowledge, and then curate cybersecurity training for each employee at the level they're comfortable with, and move at the speed that they can learn. Right. I think that could be a force multiplier for security training, because it's now
Yeah.
you have a tutor instead of
Yeah.
walking into a lecture hall of 3,000, 4,000 people. And I
Trained
think
on what
that's
you need to know, as opposed to
sure.
more of
Yeah.
that broad generalization that may not be
Right.
specific to job role, or maybe even could be almost to the point of it's like a 301 level security training and you need 101, but
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
because the trainer doesn't know where you're at in your journey, now you have stuff
Absolutely.
just going over your head. I saw this in the so I'm working on a camera project, uh, uh, trying to not ever go back to my days before CompTIA, but sometimes you get that little itch. And so I was helping out our church with a project. They needed to do new security cameras.
Mm.
Wow, has that technology changed when it comes to very specifically AI with
Yeah.
object recognition, knowing the difference between an animal and a car, knowing the difference between people and, well, really anything else. I mean, the wind is setting off the alarm again. Why is the wind so good at doing this? Well, because we didn't have that AI or any sort of like algorithms to help recognize when those things happen. And to some extent, we're going to see cost savings for the cameras for that industry as a whole because we were looking at needing to have three, potentially four cameras, and we're going to get away with one because it leverages AI and it moves.
Hmm.
So instead of spending the money on multiple static cameras that maybe can maintain focus, in a fixed line of sight, now we got
Right.
a camera that can pan, tilt, zoom, and maintain focus throughout the entire journey of that roughly 270-degree viewing area that that camera has. And I think that's to your point on security in more of the digital realm, it's the same idea. I mean, even taking camera footage and being able to take cameras from multiple locations now that you've identified that it's a blue truck and it's like, oh, blue truck. This is all the camera footage we have for the last 30 days in your area of blue
Right.
trucks.
Right.
Start narrowing
Like
down.
stitch it together for you as
Yeah.
opposed to you having to sit and fast forward through, 6 different cameras over 24 hours. It could just say, follow this person or this truck or whatever, wherever they go in the camera system and have it just stitch that story
Yeah.
together for you.
And
That's
I saw a little bit of that like the earlier Verkado was really big in this. They kind of followed the Meraki model where you pay for a license and you get the hardware essentially, not quite that simple, but you got 30 or 40 cameras and they're doing facial recognition or look for blue backpack or fill in the blank and all of a sudden you're like here's the stitch together the timeline of every camera that showed up on today. And
right.
now you have an actual I know where this backpack has been throughout a timeline of say 2 hours or 4 hours. I mean, that's AI at its best, right? In some case, not maybe at its best, but for that particular function, it is because you could literally spend hours combing through video footage.
Well, like our big thing is we always say, eliminating the low brain, high effort work or high
Mm.
calorie work. And that's exactly what I think AI should be used for is elevating your staff and your team to not like just point and click and stare at a screen all day kind of stuff that can, be essentially offloaded to a basic AI to do these things that take people a long time, and it's just not it's not really challenging to them. It's just kind of almost busy work. So if we can get rid of that, I think we can free people up to do more interesting things, like take a walk.
Right.
That'd be
Wait,
more
there's
mental
trees
health.
outside.
Yeah, like, oh, well, while this runs, I'm gonna go. So it's almost like how the programmers could leave the desk while something compiled for like an hour or something like that. If everyone could have that ability to say, hey, I'm working on something, things are working, I'm going to generate the output I'm being asked for, but I don't have to sit here and stare at the screen for an hour while it works. Maybe I can go read a book or
Yeah.
call family or take a walk. I mean, I think that is the ultimate goal, I think, is to offload that menial work and elevate people to either do something more like more brain focused that causes you to have to think more, challenge yourself more, or something that just enriches you, kind of like that work-life balance that we're still trying to get
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. So we have a few minutes left. I want to
Yeah.
try a couple more questions around optimistic future. Mine, mine, I think is I think it's positive. It's in the regulation and framework space. And generally I don't like to say, regulation is good because it tends to not have the appropriate approach to solving a problem. It's more of a knee-jerk reaction to something that probably regulation isn't going to be able to solve, but it's trying to create that awareness. So in some respects, that's a good thing. But in the cybersecurity space and what we're seeing like with the SEC and some of the things that we've seen come out, like secure by design, secure by default, and some of the accountability that's coming. I won't get into the speeds and feeds of like why this could potentially be challenging for a lot of organizations, but I think the structure and the goals are making people think about things differently than they ever have before, and rightly so. And other countries outside of the US obviously have had regulation, especially in the IT services space for a very long time. We still don't. But one of the things that got me thinking about was looking at what's happening with some of the frameworks. Like NIST is now releasing will be version 3 here shortly, and it's got they've added in governance, like, SMB space especially governance is not high priority because we're used to just we want to turn screwdrivers and hope that solves the problem and not necessarily look at the bigger picture. But then you're also seeing with CMMC and some of the other stuff that this is causing an explosion of SMB mid-market and even enterprises starting to think about like, are we capable of standing up our cybersecurity posture and being resilient prior to having things like a framework come out and identify where we have gaps. So I see that as a positive. I think 2024, we're going to see a lot more compliance. Hopefully, compliance with recognizing like just because I can meet MFA with my SMS messaging doesn't mean that's the one I should settle for. But again, like that's still strides forward in a space where previously there was no MFA being used for that app at all.
Well, I think regulation is kind of well intentioned.
Hmm.
You know, people say like, oh, it doesn't work. I don't think it's perfect, and I don't think it's meant to be. I think regulation is meant to be the minimum wage of the industry. So being
Fair.
compliant isn't the goal. It's the lowest you can go. Like you shouldn't
Right.
like strive to pay everyone minimum wage. That's just your legally lowest limit you can pay, and you shouldn't brag about that. So saying I'm compliant
We pay minimum
is
wage.
yes, let's brag about
Yeah,
that.
right, right, right.
Like, well, you should have already been because these are basic security standards. So I
Sure.
think what it does is it just moves the bar that's already low, an
Yeah.
inch up. And people that complain about it are probably the ones that, are jazzed about paying minimum wage. That's just my opinion. The not the opinion of my company, not my
Right, right,
opinion.
right.
But yeah, I think it also brings it more into, I think, the public awareness of these things.
Sure.
Um, so, again, it's not perfect, but I think a lot of times it's good, it's well intentioned, and it creates a conversation and it gets industries to get more involved because, honestly, you look at some of these breaches and they're reporting them like 6, 9 months later. So now
Is
that
that an
they're
actual time? 9 months? Is that
6 to 9 months
oh,
later,
6 to 9 months?
and now with the 4 day requirement, it'll be interesting to see how that improves the speed in which people, find out that their information is possibly, being sold out there instead of getting a hit on their credit
Right.
monitoring that they've got 127 combined years worth due to all of their
Yeah.
years getting breached. Right? You want to hear it from the person that you entrusted with your data sooner
Sure.
than that credit monitoring thing.
Like
Right?
this is weird. Why am I being prompted by my internet provider to change my password? It's Sunday.
Yeah.
And then you see it in the news. But I think along those lines, there's also another positive, and that is even if it doesn't move the needle, the regulation doesn't. The
Mhm.
conversation that's being had right now about what is appropriate and
Sure.
how do we kind of handle this in a way that, I mean, you see certain cases where the identification that the data be where it has actually happened can take months and sometimes years.
Mm.
Uh, yes, they should take proactive measures with their, the data that they're responsible for, but that doesn't necessarily equate to they should disclose this at a public level just because of, trying to, color by number so that it looks like the picture that everybody wants to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And but but that's only public companies, right? It's only
Right.
companies under the purview of the SEC. So, we're still waiting on that unified, like, civilian privacy rule that's going to be from the federal level. I think as more and more states pile on, hopefully we'll get to it. But I think that, talking about SMBs and the struggle they have with GRC, I'm
Yeah.
just hoping that's where the partner space, like the MSSPs and those that flourish in the
Yeah.
SMB space, will be able to step up and be those trusted advisors to kind of help those folks navigate the new regulations, even if they're not underneath them. I think they're a great framework to say, if we can obtain this level, right?
Right.
Again, those minimum items that we want to attain, then that'll put us in a better space and make us feel better about not only our own information and our employees' information, but the
Yeah.
customers that trust us information as well. So the stuff is out there, but they just need the help because that's not their day in and day out. They might have, a one person
Yeah.
IT IS team. I even see that in the enterprise space where there's
Sure.
one person in charge of security. And I'm just like, man, I feel bad for you because you must just be putting out fires every day.
And they might not even have the authority to
Oh yeah.
impact what needs to be done based on what they know. I
Yeah.
think that's another optimistic outlook on 24. I think we're going to see hiring for positions that I'm hoping will also have the authority to move the needle within the organization for what they've been hired for things like policy development and, best practices for a more secure posture and not just this, like, help us check the boxes so we can get our insurance premium renewed. And it's like, well, yes, we're going to renew the premium and we're going to pay the, six figures for insurance this year. But oh, by the way, if we do have something happen, that was just $100,000 or whatever it was that we just threw out the window because we didn't do any of the things that insurance is now requiring of us to do. So,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, I'm
well,
saying 2024 is the year of the CISO.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
I'm
So
with you.
we can come back December of 2024, look back on these things and see, how far off or how on point we were. But I think with
The
the new
year of the
regs coming
CISO.
out, yep, I think it's going to be year of the CISO
Yeah, I think that
or
we'll
CISO
probably see we'll probably see the Chinese calendar reflecting that as a new creature
animal.
now on the
Yeah,
new
sure.
animal. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this has been great. I think 2023, for the good, the bad, it was largely more positives than negatives. So goodbye 2023.
Yes.
And for those of you listening, I hope you have a safe and happy holidays. And from MSP 1337, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Toodles.
Toodles.